What's up, guys? How are you? It's Ebot coming back at you with another quick video, hopefully. And I'm going to talk about today about this whole situation that went on supposedly with Saltiest Gaming on his podcast and Colin Moriarty. Now, before I get into it, go check out Elite Gaming Guru's video. Excellent video. Give him a follow. He does excellent work and deserves a lot more support. He's a great dude, and he's really down to earth and, you know, very classy. Very classy. Now, to get into the whole situation with Saltiest Gaming, I'm going to start with Saltiest Gaming's air part because it's the shortest, and then I'll get into Colin, right? As far as what Salty was trying to tell him in his podcast, and I don't follow Salty because me and him had a disagreement, and I just don't like, not that I hate on the guy, I have nothing to hate on the guy, he's never done anything to me personally, but I don't follow his stuff because I don't like that he transitioned from Xbox to a PlayStation guy just because he wanted to follow the bag, meaning what was popular, instead of standing his ground for whatever reason, and then tried to sell it as he's just a gamer and he's just following the games, right? But that's neither here nor there. Now, as far as what he was telling Colin in his podcast, what he was trying to tell him, the reason why he couldn't fend him off and defeat him in his own arrogance, right? Because that's what Moriarty was acting like, an arrogant prick in many ways. He's very full of himself. Is because he didn't know enough about Xbox and history to argue or counter-argue with Colin. But he wasn't wrong, because he was telling Colin that you can't really speak about Xbox if you don't play on Xbox, because you said it formally and yourself that you don't play on Xbox. And he's absolutely right. Because that means whatever you say, yeah, you can speak about Xbox, but it holds no merit. It holds no value. Has no substance behind it, because you are just speaking based on the opinion of what you think of Xbox, of what you see around, and not really from knowing the actual truth within the industry of the brand and the company. You're just speaking based on your own personal feelings and thoughts of what you see and what you feel about Xbox, which, as a person that's been working in the industry in video games, like as far as places like IGN, shows that, number one, you're not very professional, even though you claim to be a professional, right? Even though you have those so-called quote-unquote credentials, which you do. But they mean nothing, because your behavior and your actions say otherwise. You don't act like a professional. You don't move yourself like a professional, and I'll get to that. So Salty wasn't wrong. He was right. He was absolutely right. And for that, I give him kudos and I commend him. And I think him being hard on himself, saying he regrets doing it, and he apologized to Colin, is really, he didn't really have to apologize, because he wasn't wrong. Okay? He was not wrong. He didn't have to apologize. As far as I'm concerned, Saltiest Gaming was absolutely right. He was right. Now, as far as Colin, you, my man, are full of yourself. And you're stupid and dumb. As much as you think you're smart because you have a skill of speaking and writing, you're very dumb, very uneducated, very arrogant, okay? Because you come out and say that you don't care, right? When he asked you what people think if you're speaking about Xbox if you don't play on it, right? When, as a person that's supposed to be with a so-called background of professionalism in the gaming space as a gaming journalist, right? Your responsibility is to give out the right messaging to the audience, whether they're PlayStation fans, whether they're Nintendo fans, whether they're Xbox fans. It does not matter. Your job is to be responsible to your audience. And by saying something like that means you don't care if you're spewing and saying the truth about a set company like Xbox in this case. You just say it because you feel that you have the right to, because it's your platform, and you're absolutely right. It is your platform. You can say whatever you want. But that doesn't mean that what you're saying, people need to listen to you, and it's okay that you say it and not call you out on it, because it's not. Because you're giving out the wrong information. You're giving it out based on your own personal feelings with Microsoft or Xbox, the brand. And you said it right on his podcast. So you can't deny it, right? He said it right on his podcast. Okay? That makes you look like a pompous asshole, like an arrogant prick, like a snob, like you're full of yourself. And then you had the nerve to tell him, listen, if you're not going to let me talk, when all he was trying to do was explain to you what he was trying to say, when it was his podcast, that you were just going to get off and you weren't going to talk because you didn't like that he was questioning you, okay? You came on his podcast, you needed to let him say what he has to ask you and whatever he had to say, and then answer him like a professional. And that's when I know, you can tell and know that you were butthurt and were broken because he was questioning you and your integrity. And because you were being questioned, you didn't like it. And because you didn't like it, that's why you threatened, oh, well, I'm just going to leave. You see? That's not a person of integrity or a professional person acting with professionalism or professionalism in any way, shape, or form. So the fact that you call yourself a professional because of your credentials don't mean jack shit, because your actions spoke louder than words on this podcast when you went with Salty Podcast. Now, number one, you were absolutely incorrect, even though you call yourself a so-called Sony fan. Sony's entire inception to this industry was buying studios and buying IPs, okay? To take away from Nintendo and Sega, because they knew that Nintendo and Sega did not have the money that they had because of the fact that they were an entertainment company to compete in the space of gaming to get back revenge because of the dispute of them, what they had with Nintendo, because they wanted to jerk Nintendo at their own game after Nintendo was the one that funded the R&D for the PlayStation console and for the disc that they were printing out, because they were using your disc that they were going to manufacture. So they wanted to make more money than Nintendo themselves, okay, when Nintendo was putting in the money. And that's why they acted in this way, okay? That's why they were able to bring down the price point of the PlayStation 1 to $300 versus the $400 of Sega Saturn, because they could afford to lose money on the console because they didn't spend the money. And plus they had big pockets at that time. They were the biggest company in the world with money. And you sat there saying that they nurtured their studios, which they didn't nurture at all, because all the studios that they bought were studios that did work with them for years upon years upon years, right? And never once did they allow them to keep those IPs. No. The only way they helped those studios was selling them, we'll help you, but you got to let us keep the IP. That's why Insomniac, for example, went on their own with to be independent for a while, because they wanted to do Sunset and they didn't want to sell them the IP. And Sony didn't want to help them. And then whoever they went to? Microsoft. And Microsoft helped them. Microsoft helped them and told them you can still keep the IP, while Sony didn't want to do that, right? Then, because they did an offshoot by referring them to Disney Marvel to make the Spider-Man game, that's how they went and did the game. And because they had success with the Spider-Man game, Sony wanted to capitalize on the success by putting them under their mantle and wing and say, okay, we're going to buy you Insomniac. You want to get bought? And they took it because they saw it as the opportunity for them to be known. Because all these years that they've done great games, they've never really had a lot of success with their games, with the exception of Ratchet and Clank. Everything else that they've done really didn't move heads or move units, so to speak. Okay? Not the Resistance series, not the Fuse, not the Song of the Deep, not the Sunset Overdrives, even though they were all great games. That's an example number one. And I'll put pictures up here. They nurtured studios like SOE, right? Sony Entertainment, Online Entertainment. They closed that down. Like the developers of MotorStorm, whatever the fuck game was it that they closed down, that did Drive Club. They closed them down. Why? Because they didn't make no money. They closed down Sony of Japan. Why? Because they weren't making no money. Right? They gave them opportunity to do stuff, but they don't make no money. Because it's not as simple as, oh, we're going to keep something open just because it makes us look good or cute. No. If it doesn't make no money, it don't make no sense. And that's why they lost so much money during the PS3 era and the PS2 era. Because their arrogance is what put them in that position. Because all of their failures in the PS3 era didn't come because of Xbox. It came because of their arrogance and stupidities. telling people they had to get 3 jobs in order to buy one. Okay? It wasn't Microsoft's fault. And the only reason that you had to play Xbox on the 360, you're talking about, oh, we couldn't archive the achievements, so it's all gone. The only reason you played it is because that's what was keeping your doors open and your rent paid. Because it was the leading platform, and that's what was bringing the views to IGN and all the other outlets during that generation. Because the Xbox 360 was the leading platform. It was defeating Sony in every way. Okay? That is why you had to play 360. Don't sit there and act like, oh, I played 360 because I played Xbox before. No, it doesn't matter if you played Xbox before. Because you clearly don't have no clue of the history of Xbox, which I'm going to get into as well. Okay? Because you're talking about, oh, only Sony nurtured their studios, and we'll get back to that. Again, they also closed the team that did the game Echo. Team Echo. They closed them down. They closed down the studios that were working on other stuff. They let go of relationships that they had when they had a partnership with Ready at Dawn. And then the people who did Until Dawn, right? And Beyond, and all those games, Heavy Rain, they sold them to the other because they did not have ownership anymore or a relationship. That's how well they nurtured their studios. And there's other examples, which what I'll do is I'll put it up here at this point in the video with the pictures of the things that they've done, that they let go, they haven't nurtured. And you want to talk about Xbox, so we'll give it a sec. We'll look at that. Now we'll come back to the Xbox situation. You said Xbox doesn't know how to nurture because look what's going to happen in last generation. First of all, the Fable situation, they already had invested $75 million, and the Fable game was trying a different type of style. People didn't like it, so they scrapped the entire thing, and they redirected it to make the project in new hands, put the project in new hands, which is Playground Games, and that's why the game is being worked on. If they didn't take care of it, they would have just scrapped it and not do it again. That's what, and Fable's still being worked on. So that's, you're wrong on number one. The Scalebound situation was Platinum Games themselves not taking priority on the biggest project that they've ever done the entire life, because none of their other games and projects have ever done anything or any type of number for them, and wasn't nowhere near at the scale of Scalebound that was going to potentially put them in the map, spending millions and millions of dollars, and still the game wasn't done. Which Platinum themselves came out and said, no, we feel bad that Microsoft took the heat or fault. Okay? So that's your error number two. The freaking game that they were doing from the OG, the other game with the magic card magicians, the Phantom Dust, was because they showed them what they wanted to do with the game, and when they looked at the project, it wasn't good enough. Microsoft didn't want to bring it out because it was not at the scale and at the quality that they wanted. So they scrapped it. Obviously, they haven't been able to find someone else to want to do it, because that was a team that came to them telling them and pitched them an idea with a demo that's out there that you can see of what they wanted to do, and the demo just wasn't up to snuff. Okay? So that's your error number three. Rare has been the most profitable they've ever been, even when they were with Nintendo. Okay? With games like Sea of Thieves, the success they had with the avatars, with the home Xbox Home, with the avatar system that they created because they chose to. Just like they had success with Viva Pinata, that they even went on the Nintendo DS, and successes with other types of venues they've done. And they tried other things, like a new Banjo, like Cameo, like Perfect Dark. That's what's called trying, and then there's hits and misses. You're not always going to have a success. Just like Guerrilla Games didn't have success for all those years with Killzone, okay, until now with Horizon Zero Dawn, and then that's when they got acquired a little bit before that, when they allowed them to play something, do something different, okay? Because Sony, again, the only reason they let people do projects with these developers was because they told them, you got to let us own the IP. That's not nurturing. Nurturing will be letting them keep it and letting them do what they had to do and still publish and help them fund the game. The way that Microsoft did with Titanfall, with Respawn, or with Max Curse of the Brotherhood with Press Play, or what they did with Twisted Pixels with Local Psycho, or what they did with Capcom with Dead Rising 3, or what they did with Epic that they went and bought Gears of War to keep it preserved, or what they did with Mojang when he asked them to please take care of the damn property, and it's made more money than it has ever before. It has more people following and playing it today. Okay? And the list goes on and on and on with the guys from Moon Studios doing Ori, Studio MDHR with Cuphead, okay? Where they changed their contract where it was supposed to be lifetime exclusives like Ashen as well, and then they allowed them to bring them to other platforms because they wanted to make more money and they were new and up-and-coming developers. That's how you nurture the industry and gaming developers, you dumb moron. Sony has never done that for any developer. They only bought Housemarque because it was a cheap buy, and they know they can make games with them that are good because they make good games, even though they don't make a lot of money. But they break even because they don't spend a lot of money on their games. They nurture the developers so well that when they brought out Returnal, they didn't even let them know they're going to charge $60, $70 for a game that should have been maybe $40, $30. Okay? So no, absolutely not. They don't nurture their fucking companies and developers. That's a lie. Flat out. The only reason they got Naughty Dog nurtured, they bought them because of all the years of them working. They finally did a hit with fucking Uncharted and then The Last of Us, which became their real successful staple. Because the PS3, let's be honest, didn't have no games. And The Last of Us 2, or 1 rather, was the only real game that was of a better quality that they brought out the entire generation. Everything else was kind of mediocre. The same way they did work with Ninja Theory, with Heavenly Sword. Did they bother to make anything else with them? No. You talk about they keep preservation. No, they didn't do anything. Nothing. They left the IP dead and they never helped them with it at all. They never pushed it because it didn't do well. But yet they nurtured the studios and developers so much, right? Listen, you lucky you didn't meet somebody like me, because you ain't gonna have a chance with somebody like me. Because you need to be put in your place. Exactly like your stupid comment, well, why would they buy a company like Naughty Dog, like Ninja Theory, Microsoft? Well, number one, Ninja Theory started their fucking goddamn career with Microsoft. They said it vividly and openly in their featurette that Microsoft was the first one to give an opportunity with Kung Fu Chaos on the OG Xbox. And when they told them that they can come work for them and keep their creative freedom under their wing and help them budget and fund their game, because they were about to go bankrupt. 12 people, I think it was, or 20 people worked on Heavenly Sword, where they used cameras that they bought from Home Depot. And if it wasn't for Hellblade doing well, they would have probably been closed down. And Microsoft offered them an offer for them to have a future without risk and without having a fear of not having money to budget their games and their ideas. Because Microsoft saw the potential and knew that they have the potential to be bigger and bigger. And because they had a relationship that they established back in the OG Xbox. Just like Insomniac with Sony, they've always been synonymous with Sony. That's why they said, we'll take this opportunity. When Ted Price came out openly and said, oh no, we want to stay independent. And that changed like this, right? Because money talks and bullshit walks. Okay? That's why Ninja Theory got acquired. And because Microsoft doesn't have a developing studio that creates action-adventure games like God of War. That's why they got Ninja Theory. So they can be a studio that makes games like a God of War. That's why Heavenly Sword 2 is the game they're making now, alongside Project Mira and the other project they're working on. Plus, Microsoft is 2 generations behind PlayStation. They didn't have studios that they had from the jump. They had to slowly work their way up. And even with that, Microsoft has built more studios than Sony. Because Sony built Polyphony Studios, Sony Santa Monica, and Studio Japan, as far as I know, right? I could be wrong, there might be a few more, right? But the ones that stand out the most. Microsoft has built studios like 343. They built Turn 10. They built the Coalition, which was originally known as Black Tusk Studios. They had Microsoft Studios. And they have the studios of ID at Xbox now, right? Because that's considered a studio that picks up other up-and-coming talent like Studio MDHR, right? and willing to build new talent, right? They also have the initiative now as well, right? So they built at least 5 to 6 studios in-house internally, okay? Because their sports studios, they closed down, okay? So no, in the shorter period of time, they built studios as well. They didn't just buy. And the reason why they're buying is because they need more studios to keep their brand growing, especially now with Game Pass. Not because they're trying to monopolize the business. Because it's funny how you say that it would be wrong for Take-Two to be bought by them because of the GTA brand being so big. But it's not wrong when Square Enix was held captive and hostage by Sony because they own 19% of their shares for all those fucking years, and none of their games came out, only on Sony platform and on some Nintendo platform until just recently because their contract came to an end because Sony don't own no more those 19% shares. And yet Square still puts Final Fantasy VII Remake exclusive. Their up-and-coming game Forspoken is going to be exclusive for 2 years. Their other game, Final Fantasy, what is it, 17, 19, whatever it is, the new one that's coming out, is also going to be a 2-year time exclusive. That's okay. Or Spider-Man, that they don't own crap. They only own the movie license. And yet, it's okay for them to have Wolverine and Spider-Man like they own these Marvel IPs. I don't see you crying about that or anybody else. Why? If Sony don't own them. Just like Sony had took hostage of the 2 streaming services for anime, which is Crunchyroll and Funimation. Which that means that for the future, if they want to make anime games, if Sony wants to hold some type of stranglehold with these developers and these people that own these IPs, and they'll say, well, listen, make the games, these animes, exclusive to the PlayStation platform, or we won't support you on our streaming services for anime, which they can do that. What do you think that's going to do? That's going to potentially just keep anime-style games more on Sony's console, on the PlayStation, and they won't come to the Xbox. You've already seen it this generation last with Tokyo Ghoul, with Berserk, with Fist of the North Star. I mean, Gundam, Earth Defense Force. May I continue, Colin Moriarty? Okay? You, my man, are full of yourself, and you don't know jack about the industry. Not jack shit. Okay? You only know what you know based on what you did at IGN. But you don't know real history. And you haven't even bothered to know it. And if you do, you're just playing it off and you don't talk about it because you don't care, because you just want to push the brand in the name of Sony, which also shows that you're just a shill and a corporate slave to Sony, if that's the case. Okay? Because if you want to play the dumb card, oh, I don't know, I don't care. And you saying, oh, I'm not in the YouTube space, I'm in the podcast space, also shows how dumb you are. Because whether you have your podcast on Discord, on iTunes, you, my man, still stream your damn podcast on YouTube. So you have a YouTube brand, channel, and space. So yes, you are in the YouTube space. Because people are going to go there, follow you, and follow your brand. Stop being a moron. Okay? You are on the YouTube space. So stop acting like you're on the podcast space. Podcast started back then with Kevin Smith years ago. So cut the shit out. You ain't doing nothing special, brother. You are absolutely wrong. On top of that, okay, you come out and you say things like, oh, that Microsoft, like when they did with the Phantom Disc, right? Which I said, it was because the project wasn't good enough. The Scalebound, I already said what it was. Okay? All those things that happened last generation, right, was because Microsoft didn't want to bring out bad product. And the situation with Gears, they tried new things. People liked it, some people didn't. But at least they're trying to evolve the franchise. The same thing with Halo. They've done great. Halo's games been great. They're not bad games. They may not be the same thing as the originals because they're not supposed to be. It's called evolution. They change. Things grow. Some things work, some things stick, some things don't. If they didn't care, they wouldn't bother to make it anymore. They would have been closed down the studio and done other things. So no, Forza has with Turn 10 and with Playground Games become the #1 racer in the world, while Polyphony is trying to find himself again. So, Saltiest Gamer wasn't wrong. He just didn't know how to answer you. And you telling him, oh, that you'll get off because he was questioning you and you didn't want to be questioned, just shows that you are weak and you want to push your agenda in your way so people will be like, oh, look, I'm Colin Moriarty. Meanwhile, you don't want to show respect to somebody else like Saltiest Gaming because he hasn't been in the industry as long as you have, or because he didn't work for IGN, or because he didn't publish a game for the Xbox 360, which you claim that was. Whether you publish the game or not doesn't mean that you're an Xbox fan. That just means you were trying to get an opportunity to get in the industry with publishing a game to make money. That's it. And Microsoft gave you that opportunity. That's all that means. That's all that means. That doesn't mean nothing else because you got money for it. It wasn't like you went in there and did it for free. Did you? No. If that's the case. And that's if you did that. That's what you said in the podcast. That's what I understood. If I'm wrong, then that's different. I apologize. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm going based on what you said on the podcast with your answers. So, learn your history, Colin. That's all I can tell you because you don't know jack shit. The same way that Double Fine said clear as day that they were in trouble and the Kickstarter for Psychonauts wasn't even going to match what they needed to make the next game. And they had a good relationship with Microsoft since OG because of the first Psychonauts, which Tim Schafer himself also said it. Same guy, same thing with the people from Obsidian. They were about to close down. Microsoft gave them an opportunity. They saved them. The people who did the contrast game, We Happy Few, they're up and coming. Give them an opportunity. Same thing with Undead Labs with State of Decay. They're building a portfolio because they didn't have enough studios to keep making more and more AAA games, AA games, single A games, whatever the case may be. The Lala Studios with the Battletoads. They are taking care of developers that are up and coming and that are small, just like Asobo with Plague Tales. They help promote it. They help them out with doing stuff with Flight Simulator. Now with the upcoming Plague Tales 2, which will be on Game Pass. All those things are helping these developers grow internally, organically, like Jim Ryan likes to say, right? Just like the Crackdown situation. They were using brand new technology that's never been done before. And like anything new, it takes time for it to grow and to become good. Like anything new. So what happened? The multiplayer didn't work out. But as far as the game with Sumo Digital, it worked out. The game was great. The Crackdown 3 campaign is fantastic. Because people didn't play it. It's on Game Pass. People got a chance to play it because they chose not to. Because they're too busy listening to false information from people like you in your outlets saying dumb things about consoles you don't play. So like I said, I hope you heard me clear, Colin. If you don't play on a set console, then no, you can't get mad if people come at you and say something to you. Because again, you clearly have no clue what you're saying. Okay? You just don't. And your opinion is just that, an opinion based off your feelings. Your personal feelings towards Xbox and Microsoft. Not because you know what actually is going on within the industry and the brand of Xbox and the division. You don't. You don't know anything. Not even about games. Period. Or what's going on. So I hope somebody lets you see this, and I hope you get tagged, and I hope that the message comes across. Okay? Because, again, you say you're a PlayStation dude, which you are, for all those years, and you're trying to act as if Sony has come into this industry doing things the right way and earned their respect when they never did. They mudslinged their way into the entire industry because they had money, bulled their way in, and didn't respect anybody. Microsoft has been doing this since the MSX, since the Flight Simulator days on PC. They didn't bulldog anybody. They helped Sega when Sega needed help with the online infrastructure. And they also were a part of the continuation of Sega with the OG Xbox when they had the 12 game deal, which originally the OG Xbox was being talked to be the next Dreamcast at one point. But because they weren't a Japanese company, it was not allowed by Sega of Japan. Which is all public record. I'm not making this up. This is all public record. These are the facts. Just go talk to Peter Moore or Seamus Blackley. Anyway, that's what I have to say. He wasn't wrong. And Moriarty's you just show that you're a Sony shell and a corporate slave at the utmost highest, because you have a background of some type of professionalism within the industry with gaming media, and yet you show your allegiance to a company because that's all you see in your eyes, like a freaking cultist. And get mad because people are telling you not to say something to you because you're saying something about console that you don't even invest in and play. And again, you only played on 360 because that was paying your bills back then. So don't come with that bull crap, because that was the leading platform and everybody knows it. That's why you left IGN and went on your own and still shilling for Sony. Like they pay your bills. How stupid is that? Leave a thumbs up if you liked the video. Leave a thumbs down if you didn't like the video. Share it with someone you think might like it. Let me know, as always, in the comments below how you feel about my thoughts. If you agree, you disagree, add more, don't add more, don't really make a difference. It's all right. You have that right. It's your right to disagree or not agree with me, or to add whatever you want. Just feel free, because, you know, it's all good for gaming conversation. This is your boy Hebot signing off. I'll see you guys in the next one. Be good. Peace.